Once upon a time, in the heart of Ikeja, there lived a woman named Tade. She was well known across town for owning the biggest boutique, a place where people from far and near came to shop for fashionable clothes at unbelievably low prices. Unlike other boutiques where prices seemed inflated, Tade's boutique was different. Her clothes were so affordable that people often wondered how she made profit. It wasn't just about the prices. Tade's boutique had everything. Whether you were looking for an outfit for a wedding, a birthday party, a corporate event, or just casual wear, she had it all. If you ever found yourself confused about what to wear, people would simply say, "Just go to Tade's boutique." It was the talk of the town, and no one could resist shopping there. Among those drawn to the boutique was Demi, a newlywed who had just tied the knot with her husband, Tolu. The couple was preparing for their honeymoon, and Demi wanted new clothes for their trip. She had heard so much about Tade's boutique from her best friend, Fumi. "I love your dress, Fumi. Where did you get it from?" Demi had asked one evening. Fumi smiled and said with excitement, "Tade's boutique, of course. And guess what? Her prices are insanely affordable." Demi had been eager to visit the boutique ever since. So, that evening, she and Tolu drove down to the famous boutique, ready to shop for their honeymoon. As they stepped into the boutique, the first thing that struck them was the crowd. The place was packed with men and women browsing through racks of clothes, picking out items and trying them on. The boutique buzzed with activity, the sound of hangers sliding across metal racks and customers chatting excitedly. A woman in her mid-30s with a warm smile approached them. "Welcome to Tade's boutique," she said cheerfully. "I'm Tade, the owner. What are you looking for today?" Demi's eyes lit up as she scanned the boutique. Then, she spotted a simple yet elegant red dress on one of the racks. "That one," she said, pointing. Tade brought out the dress and handed it to Demi, who rushed to try it on. When she stepped out of the dressing room, Tolu's face lit up. "Baby, I love this dress on you. We should get it," he said, admiration in his voice. Excited, Demi twirled in front of the mirror. The dress fit her perfectly, hugging her curves in all the right places. Without hesitation, they continued shopping, picking out more clothes for their honeymoon. When they were done, they paid for their items and headed toward the door. As they walked out, Tade called after them, "See you next time!" "Definitely," Tolu and Demi replied in unison, smiling. The next morning, Tolu and Demi were in their bedroom, packing for their honeymoon. She held up the red dress and admired it once again. "This is going to be perfect for our first dinner on the trip," she thought to herself. But just as they were about to zip up their suitcases, Tolu suddenly paused. A strange expression crossed his face, and he turned to his wife. "Demi, do we really need to go on this trip?" he asked, his voice uncertain. Demi froze, confused by his sudden change of tone. "What? Of course. We've been planning this for months, Tolu. Why are you asking that?" Tolu hesitated, looking around the room as if searching for something. "Babe, but we've been planning this trip even before our wedding. What exactly is the issue?" Demi asked, her voice calm but laced with concern. "You know our flight leaves tomorrow morning, right?" Tolu sat on the edge of the bed, his gaze fixed on the floor. He exhaled deeply before speaking. "I just suddenly don't feel like we should go anymore," he said, his voice steady, yet carrying a weight that made Demi uneasy. She frowned, shifting closer to him. "What do you mean you don't feel like we should go?" "Babe, I've already told my friends and everyone is expecting to see our pictures from the trip," she said, her tone growing more persuasive. Tolu shook his head, his decision firm. "We are not going," he said, this time with finality. Demi stared at him, disbelief flashing across her face. "Just like that? Do you have a reason?" she pressed, searching his face for an explanation, any clue as to what had changed. Silence. Tolu didn't say a word. He simply stood up, walked to the window, and gazed outside as though the answer was somewhere in the quiet night. The next morning came, and with it, The reality of their canceled honeymoon settled in. Demi struggled to wrap her head around it. Just like that? No explanation? No discussion? Her husband had canceled their long-awaited honeymoon without so much as a solid reason. Tolu, on the other hand, couldn't even explain his own decision. A part of him felt uneasy about it, yet another part felt like he had done the right thing. But why? He didn't know. Tolu sat on the couch in the parlor, staring blankly at his phone when it suddenly rang. It was his best friend, Kola. He picked up immediately. "Guy, I got your text. You said you and Demi aren't going on your trip again?" Kola's voice was laced with curiosity. "Yes, we canceled," Tolu responded flatly. There was a brief silence before Kola asked, "Hope everything is fine?" "Yes, everything is fine," Tolu answered quickly, though even he wasn't sure if that was true. Kola didn't push further. Instead, he cleared his throat and said, "I called to invite you and your wife to a party I'm hosting this evening. Since you guys are not traveling anymore, I'm sure you can make it?" Tolu hesitated for a moment, then shrugged. "Yeah, sure. We'll be there." After the call ended, he walked towards the kitchen where Demi was making breakfast. She still had that sad look on her face, the disappointment of their canceled honeymoon lingering in her expression. "Babe," Tolu called gently. "Yes?" she responded without looking at him. "Kola is inviting us to a dinner party he's hosting this evening." Demi paused for a moment, then slowly turned to face him. A small smile crept onto her lips. At least now she had a reason to wear her beautiful dress she bought from Tade's boutique and to leave the house and take her mind off the canceled trip. "Okay," she said, nodding. "That sounds nice." As the evening approached, Tolu carefully adjusted his navy blue suit in front of the mirror, admiring how perfectly it fit. He had bought it from Tade's boutique, and this was his first time wearing it. Just then, Demi stepped into the room, wearing her red gown that hugged her curves beautifully. Tolu turned to face her, his eyes widening in admiration. "Wow, babe, you look breathtaking," Demi smiled, doing a playful twirl. "Thank you, love, and you, my dear husband, look very handsome." They looked like the perfect couple as they stepped out of the house, hands intertwined, heading to the much-anticipated dinner. The dinner party was a lively get-together, a reunion of old university friends. Laughter and chatter filled the elegant event hall as familiar faces exchanged warm greetings. As soon as Tolu and Demi arrived, they found a table and settled in. It wasn't long before Kola spotted them and made his way over with a wide grin. Kola greeted excitedly, shaking hands with Tolu before giving Demi a warm hug. "I'm so glad you guys could make it." "Of course, bro. You know we wouldn't miss it," Tolu responded, smiling. Everything seemed perfect. The atmosphere was cheerful, the food was delicious, and the music was just right. Tolu and Demi had started to relax, enjoying the evening. But then, something happened. Something that changed the course of their night entirely. Lola walked gracefully toward the table where Tolu and his wife Demi were seated. Her presence carried an air of confidence, but there was something else. Something lingered between her and Tolu. "Long time, Tolu," she said, tapping his shoulder lightly. Tolu's body stiffened the moment he set his eyes on her. It had been years, yet the memories came rushing back in an instant. Lola wasn't just any woman from his past. She was the woman he had once planned his future with. Back in university, she was his world. Their love had been deep, the kind that made him believe in forever. He had been on the verge of proposing when she left for her master's program in the UK. The heartbreak that followed was one of the most painful experiences of his life. She was his first love, and when she walked away, she took a part of him with her. It took him a year to heal, one long year of emptiness before he met Demi. Slowly, she helped him rediscover love. 10 months into their relationship, they got married. He had moved on, or so he thought. But now, here was Lola, standing before him like a ghost from his past. Demi noticed the way Tolu looked at Lola. It wasn't just surprise, it was something deeper. She didn't like it. Tolu, on the other hand, was too shocked to mask his emotions. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice uneasy. Lola smiled, tilting her head slightly. "I just finished my master's program in the UK, so I'm back for a while." Tolu almost forgot Demi was sitting right there beside him. "Oh, this is my wife, Demi," he finally said, snapping out of his daze. Demi forced a polite smile as she and Lola exchanged pleasantries. But deep inside, she felt unsettled. She already knew who Lola was. She knew the pain Tolu had gone through because of her. And now, she was back? This wasn't good. "Enjoy the rest of your night," Lola said, flashing a flirty smile before walking away. Tolu's eyes followed her as she disappeared into the crowd. He wasn't even aware of it, but Demi was. She had to call his name to snap him out of it. The night continued. Conversations flowed and laughter filled the room, but Tolu was no longer fully present. His mind was trapped in memories of Lola. When they finally got home, Demi was exhausted from the party. She changed into her nightwear and went straight to bed. She didn't want to bring up the topic of Lola at all. She trusted her husband, and that was all that mattered. Tolu, however, couldn't sleep. He sat on the couch in their sitting room, scrolling through his contacts, contemplating if to call Lola. What will he say was his reason for calling? He was now married and should have nothing to do with another woman, right? So why was he still thinking about her? Just as Tolu was about to drop his phone, it rang. It was Lola. His heart skipped a beat before he picked up. "Tolu, seeing you today reminded me of how much I have really missed you, the love we started and the future we had," Lola said. Tolu didn't know what to say. "Can we have lunch tomorrow?" he finally asked. "Sure, I would like that," Lola responded. The next day, Tolu left the house, telling his wife Demi that he was going to Cola's, but in reality, he was going to see Lola. Tolu was already seated in a luxurious restaurant in Lekki when Lola walked in, dressed in a beautiful red dress. He was completely blown away. "You look beautiful," he said. "Thank you, Tolu," Lola answered with a smile. That evening, something rekindled between them. They talked, laughed, and caught up on old memories. What started as a one-time thing soon became a love affair between Tolu and Lola. Tolu changed completely to his wife Demi. He became so mean to her. He would shout at her over the slightest thing. Their once peaceful home became hell. He would leave the house and return late into the night. If Demi asked where he had been, it would turn into a big fight. They had only been married for 3 months, but everything had already fallen apart. One morning, Demi finally asked Tolu, "Is it her, right?" "Who?" Tolu responded, rage in his voice. "Lola." Tolu didn't hesitate. "Yes, she is the one." Demi cried the whole day. She didn't know what to do. The next day, Demi went to the market for some shopping. As she passed by Teddy's boutique, she felt an unsettling wave of unease, but couldn't understand why. The boutique was filled with shoppers as usual. Demi bought what she needed and went home. As she entered the living room, she froze. Sitting on the couch were Lola and Tolu, kissing. Out of shock, the leather bag in her hand dropped to the floor. Lola and Tolu turned to look at her. Furious and heartbroken, Demi packed her things. Tears streamed down her face as she left the house. Tolu didn't stop her. "You can go!" he shouted as she carried her bag away. Lola's heart lit up with joy. She had Tolu all to herself now. Demi was still in tears when she arrived at her mother's house. Her mother tried to console her. "What happened?" she asked. But Demi didn't answer. She just kept crying. Later that day, after Demi had calmed down, she sat beside her mother and poured out her heart. She narrated everything. How Tolu had abruptly canceled their honeymoon trip without any explanation, the mysterious way his ex reappeared in his life, and how he had slowly become a completely different man. She left nothing out. Demi's mother listened, her heart heavy with concern. It was painful to see her daughter's marriage crumbled before her eyes. She sighed deeply and held Demi's hands. Without saying much, she closed her eyes and said a short but powerful prayer. "Dear Lord, fix my daughter's marriage." With that, she got up and went to bed. Days later, while Demi was arranging her clothes, her eyes landed on a particular red dress, the one she had bought from Tade's boutique. A sudden wave of unease washed over her, the same feeling she had that day she walked past Tade's boutique. She shivered but tried to brush it off, but the feeling lingered. Then, as if a veil had been lifted from her eyes, she started connecting the dots. It was after she and Tolu visited that boutique that their lives began to fall apart. First, Tolu canceled their honeymoon. Then, out of nowhere, his ex showed up, and suddenly, he began treating her like a stranger. Demi's hands trembled as she reached for the dress. She could no longer ignore the signs. There was something wrong, very wrong, about that boutique. Without wasting time, she gathered the clothes they had bought from Tade's boutique and took them outside. She hesitated for a moment, staring at the beautiful red dress. But then, with a deep breath, she threw it into the fire. She watched as the flames consumed the clothes, turning them into ashes. Still unsettled, she knew there was more to be done. She had to get rid of Tolu's clothes, too. Demi left her mother's house and hurried back to her matrimonial home. Fortunately, Tolu wasn't home. Without hesitation, she packed every single piece of clothing he had bought from Tade's boutique and set them ablaze, just like she had done with hers. As she watched the flames rise, she felt an unexplainable relief, as if a dark cloud had lifted. With that, she returned to her mother's house, hoping that whatever evil had entered their home through those clothes would finally be broken. That evening, Tolu and Lola sat in an expensive restaurant in Lekki. The air smelled of luxury, and the sound of clinking glasses filled the space. Lola smiled at him, but something suddenly shifted in Tolu's eyes. It was as if he had just woken up from a deep sleep. He blinked, looking around in confusion before turning to Lola. "What am I doing here?" His voice was laced with shock. "Where is my wife?" Lola's smile disappeared. "Your wife?" she scoffed. "She packed her things and left days ago." Tolu felt his heart sink. What had he done? Without another word, he rushed out of the restaurant, jumped into his car, and drove home as fast as he could. His hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, his mind racing. As soon as he arrived, he searched the house frantically, but Demi was nowhere to be found. Panic-stricken, he grabbed his phone and dialed her number. "Where are you?" His voice was desperate. "I'm at my mom's house," Demi replied, her voice calm but firm. "I'm coming," Tolu said without hesitation. Tears, regret, and redemption. Tolu drove like a man possessed, not stopping until he reached Demi's mother's house. He barely knocked before pushing the door open. The moment he saw Demi, his legs gave way, and he fell to his knees. Tears streamed down his face as he struggled to find the right words. "I don't know what came over me, Demi. I swear I didn't know what I was doing. I was completely lost." Demi's eyes welled with tears. She had been angry, hurt, and heartbroken, but looking at her husband now, she knew this was not the man she married. Something had controlled him. "It wasn't you, Tolu," she whispered, her voice trembling. She stepped closer, wiping her tears as she continued. "It was that boutique. Tade's boutique. The clothes we bought there. That's where it all started." Tolu stared at her, confused. "Think about it," she urged. "Everything went wrong after we visited that place. That boutique is evil." Slowly, realization dawned on Tolu. He pulled Demi into his arms, holding her tightly as they both wept. From the corner of the room, Demi's mother watched them with a warm smile. Seeing her daughter and son-in-law reunited filled her heart with joy. Sometimes all it takes is a simple prayer and an act of faith to change everything. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. See you in the next story.